of course, being that we are first responder fitness and our focus is on law enforcement and firefighting, you need to be physically ready. You need physical preparedness. And so you've got to have that functional strength, that functional ability to work hard and to win a fight if you're in a fight, or to drag a partner or a victim out of a burning car. You need that ability to go into battle as a firefighter, as a police officer, and you need to be able to function well within that career. Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer, where armor is forged through mental, spiritual, and physical preparation. Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer, my friends. It is a pleasure to be here with you again today for another video to discuss some important topics. In fact, I'm super excited about the video, the podcast that we have today for you. But first of all, I want to ask you how things are going. We are in a brand new year, brand new time. And I know many of you have set new resolutions and new goals to get healthy this year. And we at First Responder Fitness are here to help you in everything, here to help you with every step of the way. In fact, we are releasing a new video each month, the Habits to Healthy in 1 Year videos. If you have not heard about those or you have not seen those, boy, I encourage you, go to our YouTube page, look at the videos. You'll find the Habits to Healthy videos. They are shorter. There's a little target there. And all the videos are together. They'll be together. As of right now, there's just the first month, which, of course, is drinking more water and tracking everything you eat, getting into these habits. And we're going to stack habits throughout the next 12 months to get you healthy and to just change your life. In addition, on all of our social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, X, everything, in the profile is a link tree. If you go to our link tree, you can download the PDFs for free that talk about each one of the habits and talk about the habits that we're going to implement and that we are implementing over the next 12 months. Trust me, you want to get on board with this. If you jump on board with the Habits to Healthy in 1 year, a year from now, you are going to be looking back over the previous year, and you'll be shocked at the progress you have made. You will be healthier. Your metabolic health will have improved. Your health will have improved. Your future longevity will thank you. Your future self will thank you. You will be shocked at the improvements you make if you just follow along. Easy, simple to stack habits every single month. So I encourage you to get on board with that today. Well, I told you we have an exciting podcast for you today, and that is because we are discussing an issue today that has been debated for as long as humans have been around, I'm sure. I'm certain that Mr. Caveman, Og, and his brother Zog, when they went out there to lift the log, I guess I could be Dr. Seuss here. Anyway, when they went out to lift rocks and stones and so they could go home and impress Mrs. Caveman, I'm sure they were debating this issue. And it is the issue of what is better, heavy weights or lighter weights? What is better for your workouts? Lifting heavy weights for lower repetitions or lifting lighter weights with higher repetitions? This has been debated forever. And it's kind of funny because as long as it's been debated, it really shouldn't be, because we do have data, a lot of data from randomized controlled trials that answers this question for us. So what is better? Is it better to lift heavy weights for lower reps, or is it better to lift lighter weights with higher reps? The answer is coming in this video. But before we get into it, we need to actually define what we mean by better. What is better? What are we trying to accomplish? Is our goal strength and power only? Or is our goal hypertrophy? For example, when I was powerlifting, when I was a world champion powerlifter, my main goal, my only goal, really was maximal strength. I didn't care how good I looked in a swimming suit. I didn't care how, honestly, if I'm being honest, I didn't care how healthy my heart was. I didn't care about anything other than being able to move the most amount of weight once. I cared about power, about strength, about my 1 rep max. And my entire year's worth of working out, my macro sessions, my micro sessions, my entire system and structure of weightlifting was set up so that when I would go to a state competition, a national competition, or a world championship competition, my entire system was set up so that I would peak at those times. So I'd put the dates in my calendar and then I'd work backwards, and everything was focused on maximal force that my muscles could produce, the maximal load that I could move at one time. So that's someone who is strength focused to the extreme. On the other side of that is the person who is focused on hypertrophy. This is the person who wants bigger, more beautiful muscles. They're the ones who care a lot about how they look in a swimming suit in the summertime. They're the ones who want to increase muscle mass. They really care a lot about the, increasing that muscle fiber cross-sectional area, making sure that the biceps look good, the shoulders look good, the triceps, everything looks good. They're usually concerned about the amount of body fat they have on them. Their primary goal is aesthetics, of course, but also physical readiness. They care about being strong. Make no mistake about it. They want to be strong. They want to move more weight than the average person, than the average man or the average woman. They want to be stronger. They want to have functional strength, and they also want to be healthy in most cases. Now, don't get it twisted. I do not think that most of the elite IFBB professional bodybuilders are concerned that much about health. If they were, they would not be taking enough drugs to kill a rhinoceros. But in its purest form, bodybuilding is about health as well as aesthetics, as well as strength. And so what are we talking about today on whether or not something is better? Most of you want a good mix. You want some strength, but you also want some muscle size. You also want some aesthetics. You want, of course, being that we are first responder fitness and our focus is on law enforcement and firefighting, you need to be physically ready. You need physical preparedness. And so you've got to have that functional strength, that functional ability to work hard and to win a fight if you're in a fight, or to drag a partner or a victim out of a burning car. You need that ability to go into battle as a firefighter, as a police officer, and you need to be able to function well within those within that career. And so you need a mix of strength. You need a mix of hypertrophy. our goals here at First Responder Fitness is to make sure that you not only function well while you are on duty and throughout your career, but our goal is also that you can have a long, healthful, happy, prosperous retirement. And so our goal here is also for health and for longevity. And so very, very important. Those are the key focuses when we talk about what is better. What is better? Lifting heavy, lifting light. What is better when it comes to aesthetics, physical preparedness, functional strength, health, and longevity? So when it comes to those things, the aesthetics, the physical preparedness, the strength, is there one methodology of lifting weights that is better than the other? That is what we're going to discuss today. And you know what? Thankfully, there have been, as I mentioned before, ample randomized controlled trial studies that have looked at this exact topic and has pulled away all the nonsense for us. Because if you were to ask or look at at 20 of the top influencers on Instagram, social media influencers who are into fitness, they would give you their answer, but they would give you an answer that really is biased towards what they want to sell you. You see, there's so much garbage out there on the internet that if you're not following and listening to the people who are really scientific based, those who care the most about the research, you're really cheating yourself, because there is researchers that have done the work for you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So what does the research say? Well, one of the most widely publicized studies that look at this particular question was conducted by Dr. Schoenfeld in 2016. You can research this on PubMed, but Schoenfeld looked at what method was best for hypertrophy, what built the biggest muscles, what laid down that cross-sectional fibers in the muscles better, heavy weights with lower reps or lighter weight with higher reps. And he answered that question. But before we get into that, we need to identify, what are we talking about, high weights versus low weights? Very simply put, most of the time the researchers in most of these randomized controlled trials looked at your 1 rep maximum on a particular lift, a leg extension, a leg curl, a squat, a bench press, an arm curl. And they said, okay, roughly anything 30 to 50% of your 1 rep max we'll call lightweight. Okay. 30%, 40%, 50% of your 1 rep max is lightweight. And, you know, if you took 30% of your 1 rep max on the bar, on the arm curl, and you started going, you could probably do, I don't know, 30, 40 reps. I don't know. You could do a lot of reps. And then for heavyweights, they said, okay, for heavyweight, we're going to say that is 65, 70, 80% of your 1 rep maximum. So obviously much heavier. And with a 65 or a 70% of your 1 rep max, you're probably doing 6, maybe 8, maybe 10, 12 repetitions, somewhere in there. And so that's how most of the studies identified lightweight versus heavyweights. And that's how we're going to go about talking about it today. And so the biggest thing that they looked at was which one of those methods is best for muscle growth. Not necessarily strength, but muscle growth. They, of course, wanted to see if one would improve strength better than the other. and vice versa. But they wanted to see which one was overall best for most people when it comes to hypertrophy muscle growth. So what does the research say? The research says this: neither are necessarily better than the other. Does that shock you? Does it shock you that lifting heavier weights for lower reps is not better than lighter weight for higher reps? It shocks most people. Most people think you got to lift heavy. You got to grind, you got to lift heavy if you want to build those muscles. Well, simply put, the research doesn't back that up with a few conditions. What the research universally, not just Schoenfeld, but other research and other scientists and university studies have found is this: the key denominators. There are two very important denominators that must be in place. And if these two things are in place, whether you use heavy weights or light weights is fairly irrelevant. The first key is that you must train at or near failure. At or near failure. What does that mean? Most people have no idea. They think, oh yeah, I trained to failure, when they could still do 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 reps. I see this a lot in the gym. Training to failure or at or near failure is critical in these studies. What that means is that you are doing a set of barbell curls and you go until you can't do another rep with good strict form. You could, now they say that there's not a huge difference between going to absolute failure and leaving 1 or 2 in reserve. However, most weightlifters have no idea what true failure feels like. And so when they go to quote unquote failure, they really have only reached the point where they're leaving 2 or 3 in reserve. So I always tell people, train to failure. Until you are Dorian Yates, Mike Menser, Tom Platz, or someone, myself, or someone else who is very experienced in weightlifting and has been doing it for decades, I just tell you, go to failure. Because in most cases, I would say 80 or 90% of people's failure is 2 or 3 still in reserve. And so the number one thing that the researchers found is that whether you lift heavy weights with lower reps or lighter weight with higher reps, going to or near or at complete failure per set was the number one key. And now, for those of you that, I don't want to talk down to anybody, but I know that there are brand new weightlifters watching this. So what does that mean? Your set, you do a set, if you're doing let's say you're doing a heavy set, you're doing 70% of your 1 rep max, and you're doing barbell curls, and you want to take that one set to failure, to where you can't do another rep with good form. And then you rest 60 to 90 seconds, and you do that again. Okay, you do another set at or near failure. Now, if you're adding weight or taking weight off, it's irrelevant to the fact that you need to train at or near failure in each set. Same if you're using light weights. If you're using lightweight and you're doing 30 reps, you've got to train to failure. And I guess the one thing is that would be fairly difficult. If you're using too light of a weight, training to failure could get very, very tricky. because let's say you're using a really light weight. When you're using a weight that is so light, you'll get to failure. And then if you just rest for a millisecond, like a half a second, you can pump out another 2-3 reps because the body recovers quickly and the weight is so light. So if you go too stinking light, obviously don't be pedantic here. You don't want to take it to the extreme levels. Okay. You don't want to go so light that you'll never reach failure. Keep it within that 30 to 50 percent of your 1 rep max if you're going to do the lightweight method. Okay. But the most important key, as I've said before, is go at or near failure. The second key that the researchers said distinguished or made sure that these two methodologies of weightlifting did not have a huge significant difference in their effectiveness was that the overall volume of sets was the same or similar. So you can't compare apples to oranges. If you're doing 8 sets of a particular exercise or 5 sets of a particular exercise, and you're doing that with heavier weights, lower reps, you would have to do the equivalent on the other end if you're a lightweight lifter. In other words, the sets need to be about the same. If you're doing 5 sets here, you'd have to do 5 sets here. And each one of those 5 sets needs to be at or near failure. If you do those two things, keeping the volume the same and training at or near failure, the difference between lifting heavy weights for low reps and lightweight for high reps when it comes to hypertrophy is minimal to zero. It just is. That's just the truth. The fact is, and that is great news. Because in the next couple weeks, I'm going to lay out the top 4 advantages of training heavy with heavy weights and the top 4 advantages of training light with light weights. And each one of them have advantages because they do have other ancillary advantages over each other. And depending on your situation, whether you're a new lifter or an experienced lifter, whether you are a young person or maybe you're approaching 80 years old, maybe you're in your 80s, there are advantages and disadvantages to both methods depending on who you are, where you are in your fitness journey, how much experience you have, and whether or not you have injuries. So you'll want to tune in to future videos that talk about these advantages because there are indeed advantages to each. But when it comes to muscle building, it seems that your intensity, your ability to train at or near failure, and your volume, the amount of sets you're doing, is far more important than the amount of weight that is on the bar. Now, I think it's fairly obvious to say the heavier you lift, you're going to have some advantages when it comes to overall strength. When I was competing in powerlifting, I would, like I said, I would take my entire year. I knew that the world championships were sometime at the end of the year in November. And I would take November and I'd come back to the national championships. And then I'd go from the national championships to maybe some regional or state competitions I wanted to do. And I would look and create my entire workout routine for the year based off of when those competitions were. And I would make sure that I could peak during those competitions with my 1 rep max on the bench, squat, and deadlift. My training consisted of almost all heavy lifting. I broke it up. I used a lot of what the West Side conjugate method for my powerlifting. And so there were some dynamic speed days thrown in there each week where I would do explosive speed work. But the heavy work, the main workouts, were always heavy. And we're talking 3-rep maxes, 2-rep maxes. On very, very rare occasion, I would do some 5-repetition sets, but it would not be uncommon to go down to my basement where we'd work out. Me and my powerlifting crew, we'd go down, we'd work out, and we would do, let's say, a bench press type centered workout. And we would do 8 to 12 to 20 sets of 1-rep, 2-rep, 3-rep maxes, 3 reps, three rep sets. So we maybe do 15 sets of 3 reps with a whole lot of rest in between. And so that was centered directly on strength. And so the heavier you lift, yes, there are benefits to gaining strength. You'll get stronger moving heavier weights. You'll get more endurance by lifting lighter weights. And so it's a give and take. And we're going to cover all those in future videos. But I don't recommend that you go extreme at this point either way. In fact, you could take a period of maybe 2 months and focus really heavy on, or even 3 months and focus heavy on lifting the heavier weights, doing 70% of your 1-rep max and focusing on the lower repetitions. And when I say lower, I mean like 8 to 12, 8 to 15 repetitions, and focus on that for a little while. And over the period of 3 months, you're adding in, you want to progressively overload. You want to add in more sets. And we're going to talk about progressive overload in future episodes as well. But basically it's this: you need to constantly be pushing your body. So add another 5 pounds here, add in another set here, another couple reps, but you're focused, your general focus is the heavier weights, lower reps, and you focus on that for 3 months. And then for the next 3 months, switch it up, go to a little bit lighter weight and higher reps, and do that for the next 3 months, but continuing to focus on progressive overload, where you're putting on a little bit more weight here or adding in an extra set here and there, making sure that you're always pushing your body, convincing it to adapt, but always training to or close to failure, and making sure that your volume is high enough to maximize muscle hypertrophy. So I highly suggest, as far as practical application, mixing them up. Do a little bit of both. And if you're injured, lighten the weight and start using lighter weight and higher reps. If you have a period of time where you really want to focus on improving your bench press, or you want to get that 250, 300 pound bench press, well, you're going to want to focus on strength for a little while until you get there. I would encourage you to not get stuck in one way of thinking. I would encourage you to think outside the box and continue to have fun with this. This weightlifting and fitness is a journey, and you shouldn't get so stuck and so focused on one particular method that it's the only thing you ever do forever. That's a good way to get stale. It's a good way to get yourself injured, because the way I train in powerlifting today at nearly 50 years old, I suffer from injuries that, I have aches and pains and side effects from some very serious injuries that I had because I pushed my body to the absolute limit for too long. And I didn't do certain things that I should have been doing at the time. I didn't focus on core nearly enough, and I should have. And I'm paying the consequences of that. So I would just encourage you not to get so crazy and so set in one particular way, but just keep the basic principles with you, depending on what you decide you want to do. Heavy weights for a while or lighter weights for a while. Whatever you do, train hard. This mixing it up is even more important in the real world when it comes to law enforcement and firefighters. You have got to be flexible. You have got to be, as a police officer, as a firefighter, you need to have a perfect balance of strength, hypertrophy. I mean, because honestly, let's be honest. In the use of force continuum, if it hasn't changed much over the years, in the use of force continuum, when I was a police officer, the very, very first use of force on the use of force continuum was the officer's mere presence. And of course, that's not actually force, but it is on the force continuum, your presence. Well, if your presence is part of the force continuum, then let's make your presence be known. Have some nice jacked shoulders, be fit, have that V taper. Look like someone that a bad guy is not going to want to resist. If you look out of shape, if you look portly, if you look frail, if you look weak, if you look like a victim, they might fight you. They might fight you anyway, but they're more likely to fight you if you look like someone they could beat up. If they think, nope, this little dude's not taking me to jail. This scrawny person who is too small to do anything, and I don't mean small as in short, I mean as in you don't exercise at all, okay? Because I've known a lot of short guys who would thrash you, you know. Bottom line is this: your mere presence should have an air of strength, athletic ability. You need to be able to balance your hypertrophy, your strength, your agility for job-specific tasks. Firemen, you need to be strong. You are hauling hose, lifting things, bashing down doors, lifting people all the time. You're lifting people on stretchers and on out of cars and out of fires. You need to be athletic and strong. You owe it to the community that you serve. So a good mixture is absolutely the prescription. It's exactly what the doctor ordered when it comes to being a first responder. Having good strength, good endurance, good abilities, good agility. That is what you want to do. Can you build strength with just light weights? Yes. Yes. But it's harder to build strength with only light weights. But yes, you can. Can you build muscle endurance with just heavy weights? Yes, but it's harder. So having a good combination of the two is key. Next week, we're going to break this down even more and talk about the top 4 advantages to lifting heavy weights for low reps, the top 4 advantages over lifting light and higher reps. And we will look at the lighter weights in 2 weeks. Make sure you tune in, subscribe, and hit the bell button, hit like. Make sure that you do not miss these upcoming episodes. You're going to learn so much about heavy weights versus light weights, what is best for you, and what you want to do. But until then, be good to yourself, be good to others, and as always, my friends, stay safe.